Okay, welcome to the London studios and offices of the Intro Partnership, which is a design company that specializes in art direction and production. And joining me today is Julian House, one of Intro's creative directors. Hi, Julian.
Hello.
Thanks for taking the time to speak to us. Can you give me a brief rundown of the kind of work that you and your partners do here?
It covers print design and TV work and some web-related projects. So it's kind of multimedia and in all sorts of areas.
And some of your clients at Intro have been mega brands like Nike and Converse, but you've worked mostly in the field of music, working with bands and with record companies. Megastars like Elton John and the Rolling Stones. But you've also worked with some lesser mortals, you know, like Oasis or Prodigy, Primal Scream, and recently Placebo.
Yeah.
So for the fans out there, can you kind of explain to us what exactly art direction involves when you work with a band or with a record company?
Art direction kind of is something that, as a job, I suppose, grows out of an initial idea. So really for a record release is a campaign, and for the duration of that campaign, we sort of try and make sure that everything relates together, tells a bigger story.
Mm-hmm. So this world that you would create goes beyond just album artwork. It can encapsulate music videos as well, and tour visuals.
Yeah.
You had a long-standing relationship with Primal Scream. You created a lot of album covers for them over the years. It's through the artwork for the albums Exterminator and Evil Heat that I first became aware of your work. And I remember you made a video for one of the singles off Exterminator, which was called Kill All Hippies.
Yeah.
And which I really thought was fantastic.
You got the money, I got the soul. You got the money, I got the soul.
Okay, so shall we move on to the artwork for the new Placebo album and the new Placebo campaign? How did you come up with the concept, and how did the concept evolve? I guess it kind of started when I came in here with some of the management and saying that I wanted something different for the band this time, and that we wanted to make a clean break from our very well-established aesthetic that, you know, I kind of felt that we'd taken it as far as we could. I remember saying that we wanted something colorful and something that had a psychedelic element to it. And we've got some mood boards here which we can use.
A lot of the initial ideas will come from just sourcing imagery that I like and seems to sort of reflect what I think is the mood implied by the title of the album. So a lot of imagery I was looking at were like unknown stills from 70s and 80s science fiction films and imagery from underground experimental videos. What I found was sort of started to be drawn to certain imagery, and this is where I thought the Loud Like Love was implying to me some sort of explosive but colourful moment. It's almost like a moment from a film. It might be a still from a film, and you don't know what the film is. You try to fill in the story around it. But it's kind of science fiction thing. It's an explosion or an arrival, an event, a happening, and there being this very psychedelic, but very kind of video art looking kind of moment.
This one was my favourite when you initially sent it to us. This is this was the board that got me really, really excited with the double exposure and the sort of the kind of broken TV aspect of it. I thought it was a very interesting way of kind of showing figures. In a slightly sort of detached by technology way. Yeah.
And there's a lot of these strange sort of tumblers that I always end up trawling, where people have just got really weird films on VHS and they're just grabbing random frames, and they almost take on their own kind of narrative. You don't know what the films were. It's almost like a grab from something. It's a moment, or like something that's almost been paused on a tape, you know, that sort of feeling.
Yeah.
And
so can you talk a little bit about how you went about actually making the imagery that we ended up using on the album, and the techniques involved?
I mean,
perhaps the album cover is a good place to start.
Predominantly they are created digitally using Photoshop, using layers, but a lot of the imagery that goes into that might be rephotographed off the screen.
Can I grab my favorite here, which which is really evocative for me of like a different time and a different planet, but there's a timelessness to it as well.
Yeah, I like that sort of feel of one of the other influences was like French comic books and people like Moebius, and the way that they're all sort of strange, like you say, other planets, but you get this sense that the reference for the costumes is always coming from places he's travelled to. And there was that idea of the beginning of Close Encounters when there's just this montage of different locations around the world where something inexplicable's happened. And so you're in the Midwest somewhere, but suddenly you're in India, and they're showing the fact that the ship suddenly turned up in the desert, and that sort of building towards something. So I like the idea of a location you're not sure about, not necessarily Earth, but not necessarily another planet either.
And while you were working on this in London, we took ourselves off to LA and hooked up with our friend and photographer Joseph Lanes out there, went to the desert and did some studio shots as well. This is actually quite a famous place.
Is it Zabriskie Point, this?
And original Star Trek series.
Oh, right,
and
okay.
I think some of Planet of the Apes as well at times was filmed there. Vasquez Rocks, it's called, which is about an hour outside of LA.
Yeah, it kind of ties it all up in that 70s sci-fi TV series or something you're not quite sure about. It being a real place and being a kind of fictional place.
It's the otherworldly and the familiar, the paradox that I really, really like, and that sort of seems to run throughout.
Yeah.
Including the way that, you know, you've chosen to represent humans in there, you know.
Imagery I was finding of mannequins, and I think that was the human presence. I didn't want them to look like they're just mannequins, but it's something strange. There was a sequence in my head which was that moment in Man Who Fell to Earth where he dreams of his home planet, and there's that strange slow-mo sequence where they're kind of floating around with all the moisture and water around them. And that sort of thing where he's kind of otherworldly and he suddenly becomes alien, but he's still sort of human.
And for a sci-fi fan like me, it's just, you know, Christmas come early, you know. Okay, and moving on from this, you've already created some film pieces for the campaign. What was the sort of process like for taking it out of the still photography world and into sort of the moving image in terms of techniques?
The first thing was just the 3 Ls, wasn't it? But done in the flickering kind of video failing way. So that immediately the technique I worked out how to do that, filming it off screen using an old vision mixer effect, like the old Top of the Pops kind of thing.
Okay. Which would be from the 80s? Like,
80s, although they used it in the 70s as well, sort of thing. So the other thing we thought was how, what the video needed, as well as the band footage, was sort of characters that we kept coming back to, and so we took the idea of these spooky kind of mannequin characters and created them as 3D characters that we could sort of film from different angles and just get slight moves on and put into these strange liquid-like kind of environments and things.
I like these spooky characters because they're ambiguous, you know. I suppose in the imagination of some people they look like aliens, or they're people from the future, you know. And I like the fact that there's that ambiguity there, which creates this sort of unease inside of you, and at the same time as sort of being very attractive because of the color.
Leaving a lot of space for people to fill their own thoughts into.
Because it's what I say so often in interviews about the lyrics and the songwriting itself, is that I want there to be enough space for each individual listener to sort of connect the dots, and in connecting the dots, sort of write their own story. And so, you know, they're able to get emotionally involved in it as well.
Yeah, because it's their record, isn't it? I think that's the thing, it's theirs, and so they want to put their own ideas into it.
As soon as it comes out, it stops belonging to us. Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much, Julian. Thank you. That was fantastic. And if any of you are interested in checking out some more of his work, you can find it at intro-uk.com. Peace.